What if I told you that Taylor Swift's engagement is spiraling into something far bigger than just a love story with Jason Kelce, cheering Ed Kelsey spilling secrets, Charlie Kirk sparking controversy, and Blake Lively's legal war crashing? Down at the same time, tonight we unravel the shocking twists that Hollywood never saw coming. The world has been spinning faster ever since the news of Taylor Swift's engagement to Travis Kelce broke, and it has created a wave of emotions, reactions, and cultural clashes that feel almost too big for one story to hold. Because on the surface, it is the sweet tale of a football legend dropping to one knee for the biggest pop star of our time. But beneath the glow of diamond rings and congratulatory messages lies a tangled web of family dynamics, cultural commentary, and Hollywood chaos that refuses to sit quietly in the background. And nowhere is this more evident than in the voices of Jason Kelce and Ed Kelsey, who are both basking in the afterglow of this monumental news, yet also fanning the flames of speculation, suspense, and curiosity as Jason, with his trademark humor and Big Brother pride, used his New Heights podcast to declare his joy and marvel at the proposal that quite literally broke the internet. He reminded everyone of the record-breaking moments Taylor had already delivered on their show, and then he threw his full weight behind Travis and Taylor celebrating the love story that has now become history in the making. Jason's words were more than congratulations. They were an invitation for the public to imagine what kind of wedding this would be, and who would dare step on the dance floor when two titans of pop culture tie the knot. And yet it was Ed Kelsey, the proud father who truly set the stage for intrigue as he made the rounds on talk shows and podcasts, giving away just enough details to send fans into frenzied debates, while carefully holding back the biggest secrets about the wedding. Ed described the decorations, the flowers, the surprise, and even the clever deceptions that Travis used to keep Taylor in the dark about the moment he would propose. And he let slip that both Taylor and Travis see children in their future, confirming what millions of fans had already fantasized about: a dynasty of music and sports royalty that would carry on the Kelsey Swift name into the next generation. But then as quickly as he opened the door, Ed closed it again, refusing to reveal wedding details that surely must already be in discussion, and in doing so, he created a vacuum, a suspense-filled void that tabloids, gossip blogs, and social media have been desperate to fill with wild speculation. Some fans swear the wedding will happen sooner than expected, possibly within months. Others believe Taylor, with her love of symbolism and numbers, might wait until a carefully chosen date in 2026, when her album cycles and astrological signs align perfectly. But no matter the theory won, truth remains. Everyone is watching. And that level of attention turns even the most private gestures into global events. And while Jason and Ed's voices bring warmth and humanity to the engagement, another set of voices has twisted the narrative into something far more controversial and divisive as cultural commentator Charlie Kirk decided to weigh in, suggesting that Taylor Swift should submit to Travis Kelce, a statement that immediately inflamed tensions and exposed the strange culture war battles that seem to latch themselves onto every move Taylor makes. Kirk's words were less about love and more about ideology, framing Taylor's engagement as a test of traditional roles versus modern independence. And when paired with Kirk, Cameron's nostalgic but equally loaded opinions, the conversation around Taylor and Travis transformed into a battleground where love itself became politicized. The irony is staggering because Taylor, who has spent her entire career mastering the art of storytelling through music, now finds her personal love story hijacked and twisted into narratives she never signed up for. And yet the public cannot look away. The suspense of whether she will respond, the speculation of whether she and Travis will address these cultural takes, or simply let their love speak for itself. All of it feeds into the never-ending hunger for drama that Hollywood thrives on. And just as this cultural storm gathers momentum, another thread of chaos unravels, in the form of Blake Lively's legal battle, a saga that has already been called the biggest pop culture lawsuit in the world, and one that grows messier by the day with every filing motion and response. Blake's attempt to demand more discovery, to compel answers from PR representatives, has backfired spectacularly, as the opposition now argues she has nothing. No evidence, no smoking gun, no foundation for her sweeping accusations, and their legal response cuts deep, painting her case as long on rhetoric, short on substance, and accusing her of trying to conjure evidence that simply does not exist. This revelation sends shockwaves because it reframes Blake not as the victim or the warrior she has tried to portray herself as, but as someone desperate to salvage a narrative that continues to crumble in the harsh light of courtroom reality. The suspense here is unbearable because while Taylor's love story shines brighter than ever, Blake's fight looks weaker with each passing day. And Hollywood is watching both stories at once, cheering for Taylor's fairy tale, while whispering about Blake's unraveling. And this duality creates the perfect storm of drama, because in one corner we have joy celebration and the promise of new beginnings, while in the other we have bitterness, desperation, and the looming shadow of potential defeat. And in the middle of all this chaos stands the audience, us, the public swept up in the whirlwind of headlines, tweets, podcasts, and legal filings, trying to make sense of it all as we hold our breath for the next twist. The next reveal, the next shocking headline that will once again remind us that when it comes to pop culture, love and war are never far apart, and both can dominate the news cycle with equal force and intensity. As the days unfold after the proposal, the engagement of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce becomes more than a personal milestone. It transforms into a cultural earthquake, sending ripples across every corner of the entertainment industry, sports media, and even politics, because what started as whispers of romance in the stands of NFL games has now become the union of two icons whose names dominate headlines with every breath they take. And while Jason Kelce beams like the proud older brother, he is using his platform to amplify the love story with humor and sincerity. Ed Kelsey cannot help but keep stirring the pot with his casual revelations about when Travis first bought the ring, how his mother urged him to just do it already, and how the entire family knew that this moment was not just inevitable, but monumental. Ed's words leave listeners hanging on every syllable, creating suspense, because he mixes casual family anecdotes with hints of deep secrets that only add fuel to the fire of speculation. But beyond the sweetness of family support, another storm rages as commentators seize on the engagement to force their own narratives onto it. And leading the charge is Charlie Kirk, who delivers his bizarre challenge that Taylor should submit to Travis, turning a romantic proposal into a lightning rod for ideological battles. His commentary echoes across podcasts and social media feeds, dragging Taylor into a culture war she never agreed to fight, and his framing of the engagement as a test of submission rather than celebration reveals the strange obsession certain corners of society have with controlling the narrative around powerful women. The irony is almost unbearable, because Taylor has built her empire on independence, resilience, and artistry. Yet even in her happiest personal moments, voices like Kirk attempt to recast her story through their narrow lens. But what keeps the suspense high is Taylor's silence, because she does not need to answer. She lets the love she shares with Travis speak louder than the noise, and that silence drives her critics mad because they cannot twist what she does not give them. Meanwhile, Kirk Cameron resurfaces as another voice from the past, chiming in with his own nostalgia-tinted perspective, adding weight to the cultural conversation and amplifying the sense that everyone from sports legends to religious commentators wants a piece of Taylor's story. Yet no matter how much they spin it, the real power lies with Taylor and Travis, who continue to move forward with quiet confidence, refusing to let the circus derail their happiness. And while this drama plays out, another darker storyline weaves itself through the news cycle with Blake Lively. At its center, her lawsuit, once framed as a bold stand, now appears increasingly fragile as opposition filings dismantle her claims piece by piece. The harsh language of Jed Wallace's response paints her as desperate, flailing, and without evidence, exposing the core weakness of her case and leaving Hollywood buzzing about whether she has overplayed her hand. The suspense is relentless, because every new legal filing drips with the suggestion that Blake is cornered, and yet she refuses to back down her team, doubling down on motions to compel and sweeping discovery requests that seem designed to find something, anything, that can keep the narrative alive. And this desperation is what keeps the public hooked, because we are watching in real time as a once untouchable star risks not just losing in court, but unraveling her carefully crafted image of control, grace, and untouchable glamour, and the juxtaposition could not be starker. Taylor rising into a new chapter of love, family, and future, while Blake fights to hold on to a case that many now whisper is slipping through her fingers. And this duality creates a haunting tension, because it suggests that the same spotlight that elevates one star can scorch another, and that Hollywood is less a stage and more a battlefield where timing, strategy, and public perception can decide fates as much as truth or evidence. And then swirling around these stories comes yet another bizarre subplot in the form of Burning Man, where storms have literally ripped through the desert, dismantling the famed orgy dome and leaving festival goers coated in dust like survivors of an apocalypse. The destruction is both literal and symbolic, a reminder that even the grandest spectacles can be humbled by nature's chaos, and in some strange way it mirrors the celebrity narratives unfolding in real time. The dust storm of Burning Man reflecting the dust storm of media frenzy around Taylor and Travis, while the collapse of the Orgy Dome feels eerily similar to the collapse of Blake Lively's legal fortress, once thought impenetrable, and now left in ruins. The suspense of watching these parallel stories play out keeps the public transfixed, because it is not just about one engagement, or one lawsuit, or one festival. It is about the interconnected chaos of modern celebrity culture, where every story bleeds into the next and creates an unending cycle of drama, speculation, and emotional highs and lows that demand our attention. And so the question becomes, what comes next? Will Taylor and Travis announce a wedding date sooner than expected? Will Blake's legal team find some miracle to salvage their case? Will cultural commentators like Kirk continue to try and hijack the narrative, or will the dust finally settle enough for love to stand on its own? These are the questions that drive the suspense forward and keep us hanging on every update, every quote, every leaked filing. Because in a world where truth and spectacle intertwine, the only certainty is that the next headline will be bigger, bolder, and even more shocking than the last. The fascination only grows deeper as the engagement between Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce settles into the public consciousness. Yet rather than calming down, the frenzy intensifies, because every new word from the Kelce family, every fresh clip of Ed dropping hints, every podcast Jason records with his blend of humor and heartfelt pride adds fuel to the already roaring fire of speculation. Jason has always been a figure larger than life in the football world, but now he stands at the crossroads of pop culture history, using his voice to celebrate not just his brother's joy, but the monumental collision of sports and music that this engagement represents. His laughter, his teasing, his unshakable support, all feel like glimpses into the inner circle of a family that suddenly finds itself tied to the global force of Taylor Swift. And Ed, meanwhile, continues his own dance with the media, one moment revealing details about when Travis purchased the ring and how his mother urged him to move forward, another moment refusing to answer questions about the wedding itself, creating a push and pull of disclosure and secrecy that has fans hanging on every syllable. And it is this deliberate withholding, this coy refusal to share, that drives the suspense to unbearable heights, because the more Ed refuses to answer, the more the world demands to know when, where, how the wedding will unfold, and speculation fills the vacuum with theories of lavish venues, secret ceremonies, and even private islands. Yet while this whirlwind of love and secrecy unfolds, the shadows of cultural commentary refuse to stay silent. Charlie Kirk remains one of the loudest, injecting his worldview into a story that was never his to tell, demanding that Taylor Swift submit to Travis and reframing the entire engagement into a referendum on gender roles and ideology. And while many dismiss his comments as out of touch, the truth is that his words resonate with a segment of the audience determined to turn Taylor's love story into a battleground for their own agendas. His voice collides with that of Kirk Cameron, who brings nostalgia-tinted moralizing into the conversation, creating a strange alliance of cultural critics who seem less concerned with Taylor's happiness and more obsessed with what her engagement symbolizes in their imagined wars. And the irony is that in their attempts to control the narrative, they only elevate Taylor further, because every attack, every unsolicited opinion only fuels her image as a woman whose choices belong solely to her, and the silence with which she greets these provocations becomes its own powerful statement. Yet as this cultural storm rages, another front opens with Blake Lively, who continues her desperate legal maneuvers, her latest motion to compel, dismissed by Jed Wallace's team as long on rhetoric, short on substance. Their biting words pierce through her arguments, portraying her as scrambling to create evidence that does not exist. And the suspense here comes not just from the legal filings themselves, but from what they reveal about the fragile state of her case. Hollywood whispers grow louder as insiders suggest Blake has boxed herself into a corner with little chance of escape, and the contrast between her unraveling and Taylor's ascendance could not be clearer. Two women once seen as equals in Hollywood's hierarchy, now moving in opposite directions. One rising toward love, legacy, and future, while the other clings to a lawsuit that seems destined to collapse under the weight of its own emptiness. And as these stories weave together, the public cannot look away, because this is no longer just about love or law. It is about the spectacle of celebrity, itself about how narratives collide, intertwine, and magnify, until the boundaries between truth, rumor, and entertainment blur completely. And nowhere is this more visible than in the bizarre subplot of Burning Man, where storms rip through the desert. tearing down structures including the infamous orgy dome, leaving festival goers coated in dust like survivors of an otherworldly disaster. The imagery of that chaos resonates with the narratives playing out elsewhere, because just as dust covers everything in the Nevada desert, media dust now coats every corner of Taylor's engagement and Blake's lawsuit. No detail too small, no rumor too wild to be picked up, spun and shared across social platforms. And this is where the suspense becomes unbearable, because the audience has been conditioned to expect the next twist, the next revelation, the next explosive headline that will shift the balance. Once again, will it be Ed accidentally letting slip the wedding date? Will it be Travis himself breaking his silence in a way that shocks everyone? Will it be Blake's team stumbling upon a piece of evidence that changes everything? Or will it be yet another cultural commentator trying to hijack Taylor's love story for their own agenda? The questions hang heavy like storm clouds over a desert festival, and the only certainty is that something else is coming, because in this world, stories never end. They only evolve, mutate, and return bigger, louder, and more dramatic than before. And so the engagement of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce becomes more than a love story. It becomes a mirror reflecting the obsessions, anxieties, and divisions of an entire culture. And the Blake Lively lawsuit becomes more than a legal case. It becomes a cautionary tale about the dangers of overreach and the fragility of carefully crafted images. And together, these narratives form the perfect storm, a whirlwind of love, law, and spectacle that refuses to slow down. And so we arrive at the end of this whirlwind story, a story that began with whispers of a private moment but erupted into a cultural storm. The engagement of Taylor Swift is not simply a headline. It is a lightning bolt that has illuminated the fault lines of celebrity culture, friendship, loyalty, and the never-ending war between public image and private truth. We have seen Jason Kelsey stumble over his words, Ed Kelsey attempt to shield the family, Charlie Kirk thunder from his pulpit, Kirk Cameron preach morality, Blake Lively stagger in court, and the world split in two, as if love itself had become a battlefield. What this moment reveals more than anything is the fragility of the modern myth. The way fame is both a crown and a curse for every photograph of a diamond ring. There is a shadow for every toast. There is a critic for every cheer. There is a voice that hisses from the darkness. Yet in the end, perhaps that is what makes this story so powerful. Taylor Swift has never been just a singer. She has been a symbol, a mirror reflecting the joys and wounds of millions. And her engagement, like every other chapter in her saga, has become more than a personal milestone. It has become a cultural reckoning, whether you see it as a victory for love or a sign of betrayal. Whether you celebrate or condemn, whether you believe or doubt, one truth remains undeniable. This story is not over, because in the world of celebrity, there is always another twist, another revelation, another headline waiting just beyond the horizon.